Yo, boys, how y'all doing? So, today I wanted to talk a little bit more about Tribe 9, right? A game that had a demo available during the Steam Next Fest, right? You were able to play it about a week or two, something like that. I think as of now, the moment the video is getting released, you probably can't play it anymore because I think it ended on the 21st of October. And I wanted to actually chat with you guys about why I think the game is actually refreshing, is unique, and I think it brings a lot of cool and new things to the gacha scene, right? Not only about the game itself, but also how I expect the new generation of gachas, right? Be it Promelia, NTE, Mugen, even new Hoyo titles, or titles that we don't even know about, or smaller titles, to actually inspire them and make them want to actually create new things, right? And actually innovate and bring out other possibilities or try to interpret gacha in different ways, right? Because I feel like we've been stuck into that Hoyo model for at least as soon as Genshin got released, right? And we're still fighting around that circle. Even the new titles like NTE, Promelia, and many others are still, although they are trying to innovate in one way or another, they're still kind of stuck into that model. And I feel like Tribe 9 is actually refreshing and unique in a lot of ways. And that's what we're going to talk about. Not only about that, but also how those games could also bring new things, fresh things to the table, right? And actually try and make the gacha genre more fun, right? More diverse, and everything else. So without further ado, let's just get into it, shall we? So I have a couple notes here. You guys can probably see it all, but that's okay. I'm just going to go back to full screen. So we got a lot of things to say. Okay. So firstly, I would actually just gonna do like a blanket statement. I would argue that the JRPG feeling in the game, I don't know if you guys actually played it or watched it, but the JRPG feeling that the game has is super, super refreshing to see. Like the way that the game slowly progresses, it doesn't just dump you with a bunch of lore. It doesn't dump you with a bunch of systems. It really goes slowly, step by step, throughout, I don't know, maybe 20 hours, introducing you to more and more things. Whenever I was in the 2 hour mark, I already thought the game had taught me everything it had. And no, on the 5 hour mark, we had more. On the 10 hour mark, we had more. On the 20 hour mark, we had more. And if I had to guess, we're gonna have even more whenever the game fully releases, right? Because I didn't really find a real end game mode, so we're probably gonna have even more things coming down the line, which is pretty cool. Because listen, I don't really mind if a game wants to do all the exposition and dump you a bunch of systems, lore, characters, and everything on the first batch, right? And just go like 2 hours, boom, exposition, exposition, exposition. This is all the characters, this is all the lore, this is all the systems, etc. I don't mind. I can deal with that, but I feel like an actual JRPG way of dealing with that is actually kind of nice, and I like it because especially if you're content creating, right? You're doing content creation. Sometimes you're just paying too much attention to the chat, or if you're just a fucking ADHD, fucking brain rotted guy, sometimes you just can't process every single thing that is being dropped on you on the first 1 to 2 hours of the game, right? And sometimes that does kind of kill your excitement. Kill your excitement about the game, right? So again, that slower pace, slower rhythm, although I find it quite refreshing and actually nice to see, I would argue that most of the player base, right, that are usually brain rotted casual players, they would actually probably just prefer the dump that most like Genshin, HSR, even WoA does to you in the first hours of the game. But again, I find it actually nice, and again, diversity is being brought out to the gacha space, and I think that's actually cool to see. So this story in itself, I'm not gonna spoil you all on the story, but the story actually grabs your attention frame one. Even before you can actually move the character, you're slotted into the game on the loading screen to start the game. The game already gets your attention, which I actually find quite nice. Because again, it is not like most gachas, which usually introduce you to a bunch of things for hours and hours on end, just dump a bunch of stuff, and then I don't know, 1, 2, 3 patches down the line, the story actually begins to progress, and then you're actually, oh, there's a mystery here. There's an enemy that I don't know who it is. Who is this enemy faction? Who are the good guys? Who are the other characters coming? The game really goes on a different pace. It gets your attention frame one, and then just slowly, slowly, slowly progress, right? Without that big dump. Not only that, but I actually find interesting that the game doesn't have that much yapping, at least from what I've played. who knows how it's going to be in the future, I didn't really think the game had a lot of yapping. Sure, it did have a couple moments that they talked a little bit more than I would like. That being said, it for sure does not feel like HSR and Genshin. I really had fun. And I do also have fun keeping up with HSR and Genshin stories. But again, I am really thankful that Tribe 9 actually has a different and a better, in my opinion, pacing of the story. So I don't need to sit down on the screen and maybe see characters say the same thing 1, 2, 3 times in a row, right? Or have a big 10, 20, 30 minutes dialogue. It is just actually short bursts of dialogue. So it's like 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. And that's kind of good. Like, we really don't have the big yapping session that we just sit and you gotta listen to Paimon or whatever NPCs, like the comedic relief and the brain rot explanation character. That really doesn't exist in that game, and I find that good because, again, one of the reasons that I don't enjoy that much hearing Genshin storytelling is because every time something happens, Paimon has to immediately repeat what just happened again, right? So we gotta listen to one thing at least twice in Genshin, and that kind of kills a lot of the motivation to progress in stories and everything like that, because it feels a lot more stale, right? A lot more dragged out, a lot more stalling, and I felt that game Tribe 9 doesn't actually do that. So, visual-wise, I enjoyed a lot both the 16-bit and the 3D models, right? Both of them are actually expressive and well-designed. If you guys actually pay attention during the dialogues, both the 3D models and the 16-bit chibi-like characters on the map, both of them actually have plenty expressions. You can see them sad, happy, afraid, scared, surprised, and everything else, which is really good because if you guys have played ZZZ or at least watched it, you guys know that the gacha space, it's gotta get ready to actually fight proper animations, expressions, just like ZZZ has brought into the table, right? I would argue that Genshin characters, HSR characters, and even WUA characters feels kind of stiff, right? They don't feel too much emotion. They don't portray as much emotion, right? Especially compared to ZZZ. And this game, although it also doesn't get to the level of ZZZ, it is actually good to see that the characters are actually able to express themselves, right? Show surprise, show fear, show happiness, show love. And that is also a good tool to do the storytelling, right? Because whenever the characters are yapping and they are doing expressions, it makes the story go more smoother, right? The flow of the story feels a lot better. So, about the mechanics of the game have a bunch of unique mechanics, and I'm gonna talk about a couple of them here. One of the ones that I thought it was the most interesting, and I'm not gonna go super in detail of it because it has a lot of story spoilers, is the baseball system. If you guys have watched the game or haven't, the game is heavily inspired and based in baseball, right? Although the game doesn't really play out in the real world, it has a modern society-ish vibe to it. Maybe a little bit more post-apocalyptic in a way. But the way that they integrated baseball, I don't fucking know why. Maybe it's just because baseball is the Japanese sport right now. But the way that they integrated baseball with a Phoenix Wright type of debate in it feels actually pretty fun. That being said, on the baseball part is whenever you're gonna get most of the yapping, the nonsensical yapping, but you also get a lot more information on the characters. You understand their motivations, right? What they feel like, why they care, how their characters are, like their personality and everything else, and that's good. And the fact that that's done with some with a intrinsic unique mechanic, which is again the debate mechanic on Phoenix Wright, actually feels good because sure, you're hearing the characters yapping, but while they're yapping, you're taking decisions on how you're gonna play out both the debate and the baseball system, which is really cool. Not gonna lie, I'm not a fan of baseball. Okay, I like sports, but I'm not really a fan of baseball. We don't have that culture here in Brazil. But it was actually fun to play both that baseball-ish, Phoenix Wright-ish system. Not gonna lie. The game also has some different energy systems inside the combat. I'm not talking like stamina. I'm talking energy systems inside the combat that are actually unique as well. I'm not talking about the usual chain attack and ultimate systems, but you also have, for example, the tension mechanics and the cards. So, to give you guys a rough idea on how it works, basically, whenever you're fighting, right, both you and the enemies have like I think it's called the tension system, right? And depending on how well you execute the game, the faster you can build up tension. Same thing goes for the enemy. The more the enemy is able to hit you, the more tension they get, right? And that tension bar basically goes from 0 to 1 to 2 to EX, okay? And those cards that I've mentioned, which is basically, in a way, the equipment in the game, they actually have unique effects. Some really creative, and some really normal. Like you get more damage, you get more defense, you get more crit, and some more unique. Like whenever you dodge, the time gets slowed, or if all the characters are alive, you get more damage. But if they're dead, you take more damage, and plenty others. And those systems, those cards actually activate in different amounts of that bar. So, for example, there are cards that are active since the beginning of the match, which is 0 energy. Some cards require the energy system to go to 1, to 2, or even to EX, which is, especially whenever you're fighting mobs, you're really not going to go to the EX. Whenever you're doing like important fights, bosses, or anything else, you can actually go there, and they are pretty rewarding, right? The further the bar is, the card requires the bar to go, the more effective, the more impactful the cards feel, right? For example, there was a card that if you reached EX, you dealt like 80-ish% more damage, which is a big fucking boost in damage, but you had to be in EX to use that. So that card was for, I don't know, 70% of the match, 80% of the match, that card wasn't really active, right? So there's a cool a crafting, building type of thing, which is interesting, right? Because do you prefer to have smaller buffs, but them active all the time? Or do you prefer to play on a more unbalanced scenario where you don't really have a bunch of buffs on the beginning of the stage, but whenever you go into that peak performance, max tension, you just deal a shit ton of damage, right? So you can actually customize that in a cool way, which I find it really interesting, right? Customization is always good on games. Doesn't matter how much it is. For the bosses, not only the bosses, the enemies, they also gain unique attack patterns, and they also become more aggressive whenever they reach max tension too. So you gotta pay attention on that front as well, right? Because not only you gotta try and build up your tension so you get your buffs, but you also gotta actually avoid the enemy attacks, be it parrying, dodging, whatever it is. So not only you get your bar faster, but you also avoid allowing the enemy getting their bar faster. Because whenever they are in the max tension system, listen, they already hit hard, but they hit really hard, right? And they get new patterns, they attack even faster, so it becomes a lot more punishment. There's a lot more punishment whenever you get into that level. So you should really try to avoid it, right? The fact that you have 3 characters on your team, but you don't really do the normal swapping between them like you would do again in ZZZ, Genshin, and Uwa. Basically, the 3 characters are always on the field, right? And you can switch between them on the field, on the go, or just pick whatever character you want to play and let the AI control the other 2, right? So you can basically, I don't know, do like a tank, a support, and your DPS, right? Or you can do 2 healers and a DPS, or a healer, a buffer in your DPS, however you'd prefer, right? There's also a kind of an elemental system that certain chain attacks and ultimates generate a type of a debuff on an enemy. And let's say if you want to be the most efficient as possible, you gotta kind of mix and match the characters so that, I don't know, let's say a character inflicts fear, right? And then that next character, if the enemy has fear, you can instantly activate the next chain, right? And then the next chain activates, I don't know, get them paralyzed, gets a shock debuff, right? And then the third character, because they are debuffed with paralysis, which is a shock debuff, you allow the third character to also activate their chain or gain more ultimate energy or whatever it is, right? On my experience, you don't really need that. The game really allows you to play it even without mix and matching those systems perfectly. But it is cool that you have that. And it isn't like really set in stone. For example, there are electric characters that don't require fear. They require another element, another debuff to be played first. So you can actually mix and match them pretty easily to find a team that actually suits your needs, right? And also suits your play style. Chat also told me that combat system with the 2 AIs actually is reminiscent in a lot of ways of Gazer. I haven't really played the game. I did watch a couple combat gameplay stuff to kind of compare, and yeah, it does feel a lot similar. It seems like Gazer also has the 3 character layout with 2 being AI and 1 you. That being said, I enjoyed it. I don't really find it boring or anything. The fact that you can switch between them even on the like on the go, it's good enough to me, right? I do like seeing the other characters fighting because sure, I do also enjoy being able to control everything, right, and just rotate between every character. Like again, Genshin, Wuwa, whatever the fuck. But seeing them fighting alongside me is actually kind of nice, right? It feels like my team is actually there and we're all fighting together, which is pretty cool to see. But I'm gonna lie. So talking about that, talking about combat though, I do got some criticisms about it. The combat is fun, but I feel like the combat part of the game is the part that there's the most amount of improvements to be made, right? There's a lot of room to improve the combat. For example, I really don't enjoy the way that the attack animations work and the buffering of inputs. And I'm going to explain to you guys why. So, for example, if I press the dodge button 2 times, right? Even before the first the first dodge plays out, right? If I have pressed the dodge button twice, I will be locked and I'll be forced to do both of the dodges, right? Even if I do press double dodge, the character hasn't even played out the first dodge animation, and I try to substitute that input for an attack or a special or ultimate. I mean, ultimate and chain attack, it allows me to, but like a normal attack or something, I can't. I am locked in it. And same thing for the attacks. If I'm attacking a mob and I want to cancel an attack animation into a dodge, I can't. And that's fine, I guess. There are a bunch of games that work like that, right? If you guys play Monster Hunter, it isn't really like Monster Hunter, but it kind of reminds me a lot in that way, that the combat feels a little bit janky. Not janky necessarily in a bad way, but it feels janky as part of the game. I don't really know how to put it. It kind of feels like the devs were actually trying to make the game a little more rhythmic. Like you really gotta time in your inputs and don't actually just mash it. Oh, someone is attacking, dodge, mash it. Oh, someone's attacking, dodge, right? It really feels like they want you to think more about the combat, about the animations, about the damage windows and everything else. It's not that I didn't really enjoy it or that I hate it. I just feel like even if they're going for that approach, they still can do a lot of polishing there, especially with, for example, the buffering with the double dodge or with attack chains, right? I'm okay if they want to lock me into the attack animation if I press the attack, right? And I can only dodge whenever that active frame of the attack animation is over. To me, that's totally fine. I know a lot of people won't like it, but to me, that's totally fine because it actually feels like the combat has a lot more meaning on the choices that you're doing into the combat, right? Should I really go in and complete all the combo, or am I going to be open for an enemy attack? So maybe I should just do a shorter attack string and then have the ability to dodge if the enemy is attacking me. So it actually kind of rewards you for trying to know the enemy patterns, right? And try to recognize, oh, this is a damage window. Oh, he's going to counter me. He's going to actually try to attack me. He's going to dodge. He's going to run. So that feels rewarding a lot of ways. But again, the fact that the game buffer a lot of inputs, right? They save up your inputs. So for example, if I press the attack button 3 times fast, even though the first attack animation hasn't even played out, the fact that I'm locked into that attack chain until it ends, because I've already buffered the 3 attacks on the input, because I've already inputted that in the controller, and then I'm locked out of dodging for a long time, that feels mad weird. It really feels bad. I hope that they change the way the buffering works into the game, because I don't really want to have that into the game. If the game is an action game, I want to be able to quickly respond, right? And be more of a reflex-based gaming, right? I am totally fine, again, if during the attack, I am stuck into the attack and I can just cancel it into a dodge. That's fine by me. But again, I don't really want to, I accidentally or purposely click the attack 3 times really fast. And then I'm locked into doing 3 attacks animations before I can do anything else besides ulting or doing a chain attack. That really doesn't feel good. It feels like you don't have real control of the characters, right? And you can argue that the same thing happens whenever you're actually trying to cancel an attack into a dodge. I disagree though. I feel like the buffering problem whenever you're locked into a big animation of attacks just because you mash the keys, even though there is a frame to be able to dodge between the first attack of the chain and the second attack of the chain, but I'm stuck because that input's already buffered. It really feels bad to a player. It really feels like you're not controlling the character. Like, if I could put it in a comparison, being locked in an animation is like here, but having the attacks being buffered is this bad, right? I just feel like they're on completely different levels. So again, I'm fine with being locked in an animation. I'm not really fine in being locked in a huge buffer of animations, though. I feel like that's too much of a punishment, right? But again, I get it. I feel like it isn't really a design flaw. I feel like they were really going into a more rhythmic approach to combat instead of the usual mashing and then your reflexive dodge, right? I just wish they fix that, or at least lower the way that buffering works into the game. So the gacha system, it works like the usual Hoyo system. There's a PD. After you hit the PD, there's a 50-50. If you don't get a character on the second PD, you're gonna get the character. It is the usual thing that most gacha gamers, modern gacha gamers, right, that play the big titles, are used to. So about the dungeons, which is the place, the dungeons, right? I don't really remember the name of it anymore, but like, whenever the place that you go to spend stamina, right? It is actually cool because those places are randomized, right? So it isn't like, for example, HSR or Genshin or WoW again, or even ZZZ, that, for example, oh, I want to farm, I don't know, I want to farm character ascension mats. So you're going to fight this mob, then this mob, then this mob, then this mob. That's not how it works. They are actually randomized, right? They're randomized dungeons. And that actually feels refreshing because, again, you don't get bored of it as fast. To be fair, you will still get bored of it, right? Something that you gotta do every day, and you don't do it because it's fun, you do it because you have to, will eventually get boring. Let's be honest here. That is how things work. That being said, the fact that they actually went through the effort to actually try and make something more out of it, adding that the randomization aspect, feels pretty good, and I like it. I feel like that's a plus, that's a W, right? And I would like to see more gachas actually try to implement that into their farming routines, right? So, in conclusion, even if you guys don't like Tribe 9 itself, and I get it, if you guys feel like the combat is janky or slow to you, right? If you don't like the rhythm of the story, you feel like it's too slow, you're not really a fan of JRPGs, right? You don't like long exposition stories with really slow build-ups, that's totally fine. I'm not judging you on that. I'm just happy to see that they're actually developers trying to innovate inside that gacha space, right? Especially coming from, again, a Japanese developer. If you guys know, especially on the gacha side, but in general, the Japanese, they kind of gave up on trying to innovate stuff a long time ago, like since the 80s or 90s or something. They are really just going with the flow, going with the works. FGO, for example, the shit's still the same for I don't know how many years, right? And now many other Japanese gachas, they just follow the formula, even worse than the Chinese Hoyo type games, right? They really are stuck in the past. So seeing a gacha game, especially a Japanese one, actually trying to innovate in a bunch of aspects, be it storytelling, combat system, mechanics, right? Daily grind, story, design, and everything else, actually feels really good. And that gives me, like, that refreshes my hope into the scene. Because again, I've told this in different videos and on stream, I always talk about this. We will probably be stale inside the gacha scene for at least 1 to 2 years, probably more like 3 to 5, until developers actually find a new breakthrough and they start innovating in a bunch of aspects. I hope I'm wrong though, and the new games like, again, NTE, Mugen, Promilia, and many others that are coming that I don't know, that I can't remember, or that we just don't really know about them. And I hope that they actually try to innovate faster and they give up on the open world Genshin system model, right? Because, for example, as Janazad always says, the better parts about Wuthering Waves are the parts that they didn't copy from Genshin, right? That should be a proof that although if I want to play a game that feels like Genshin, I will just play Genshin. Even if I don't enjoy Genshin that much, why would I even try to play a game like it if I can just play the original one, right? Genshin does have its problems, right? But it's still a good game. Even if you don't like it, it is still a good game. That's undeniable, right? So you can say that there's no difficulty, that the story has too much yapping. but it is still in its core a good game. Maybe it just isn't for you, right? Just like I feel the game isn't for me, even though I'm trying it again. So I feel like seeing devs actually do this, especially these Stripe 9 devs, actually make me happy, right? Be it design wise, story wise, gameplay wise, whatever it is. Seeing people trying, right, always makes me happy, renews my hope. And again, I hope that NTE, Premilia, Mugen, Enfield, and many other ones that are coming in the next year or even further down the line learn from it and actually try to create new things on it, right? I don't want to be like, it's Genshin, but it's harder and has parkour, like Wuwa. Or it's Genshin, but it has mounts, like in a farm, like Premilia. Or it's Genshin, but you're in a city and you can drive, like NTE, right? I want to see actually new things. And don't get me wrong, though, I will still try all those games, and I think they're going to be fun and they're going to be cool. But I need to see a breakthrough, right? I need to see innovation. I need to see something fresh from the scene. And I know innovation takes a while, right? It doesn't happen from like Rome wasn't built in a day, right? And those innovations won't either. But I'm happy to see that there are actually teams that are trying, right? And I hope all of those devs learn from that. Because again, I don't mind playing open world games. I like also exploring and playing open world games. But whenever you have to play 10 open world games, it's kind of hard, right? You're gonna have to pick and choose a couple to explore, a couple to just do the story, a couple to drop, right? So I feel like they should give up trying to be this is your main game, right? And just actually and maybe give up a little bit on the formula and the math on why Genshin was what it was, and actually go like, let's just make a fun game, right? And add gacha to it and see if people like it, right? Oh, sure, but then they're going to be risking their money, their profit, the investment. Like, are you sure they want to create risky games? Listen, all the great games were risky, right? Souls games were risky. Fighting games were risky, right? CS was risky. All MOBAs, risky. RTS, risky. All new genres, new games, new mechanics, all innovations are risky. Even outside gaming, right? Smartphones, tablets, computers, notebooks, whatever it is, all of those innovations are risky, but they're also the ones that have the bigger payout, right? And I wish they wouldn't just going for the lower common denominator and just trying to, this is safe, this generates money, this is okay, because that is the fall of the West developers, right? Most of the Western studios, be it AAA, be the huge ones, or even the smaller ones, they are failing because they're just going the safe route. And they gave up on making fun, unique, entertaining products, right? So, again, great to see it. Super excited for Tribe 9. I can't wait for the game to release so I can actually play it and grind it through fucking oblivion, just like the other games that we just named 100 different times in T, Premilia, Mugen, Enfield, and whatever the fuck. But yeah, that's pretty much it for today, boys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to my channel, follow me on my Twitch. I do stream every day on both Twitch and YouTube. Join my Discord if you guys want to talk anime, gaming, tech, drama, reacts, whatever the fuck. And leave it down in the comments. What did you guys think of Tribe 9? Did you guys play it? Did you guys skip it? Is it your thing? It isn't your thing. Do you guys appreciate the new things that they have? Do you guys hate the new things that they have? Do you guys actually just prefer developers to follow the whole model? Do you guys want them to innovate and be risky and try new things? What do you guys think about it? But yeah, that's pretty much it. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace. Bye-bye.